He walked into the most exclusive hotel in the city, looking like a man who had lost everything. Mud on his boots, a torn coat, and eyes full of desperation. The manager laughed. The security guards reached for their batons. The wealthy guests turned their noses up in disgust. They thought he was a beggar. They thought he was trash. But they didn't know that the dirty coat hid a black card with no limit, and the man they were mocking owned the ground they stood on. Only one person saw the truth, a waitress named Lily. And when she opened her mouth to speak the only words he understood, she didn't just save his dignity. She signed the death warrant for everyone who had wronged her. This is the story of how a glass of water changed everything. The rain in Seattle didn't just fall, it hammered against the glass, demanding entry. Inside the lobby of the Regency Grand, however, the weather was of no consequence. Here, the air was always scented with white tea and fig. The marble floors gleamed under the light of Swarovski chandeliers, and the silence was only broken by the soft click of expensive heels and the murmur of business deals worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. Lily Harper adjusted her apron, wincing slightly as the stiff fabric dug into her waist. She had been on her feet for 9 hours straight. Her ankles were swollen, and there was a dull throb behind her eyes, but she kept her expression neutral. At the Regency Grand, a frown was grounds for dismissal. "Table 4 needs water, Harper. Stop daydreaming," a voice sneered from behind her. Lily didn't need to turn around to know it was Preston Galloway. The hotel's general manager was a man who wore Italian suits that cost $3,000, but possessed a soul that was remarkably cheap. He had a face that might have been handsome if it weren't permanently creased in an expression of disdain for anyone earning less than 6 figures. "Right away, Mr. Galloway," Lily said, her voice steady. She grabbed the crystal pitcher, the condensation cool against her palm. "And fix your hair," Preston hissed as he brushed past her, checking his reflection in a brass pillar. "You look like you just woke up. We have VIPs arriving from Geneva tonight. If you embarrass me, you're out. Do you understand? No severance, just out." "I understand," Lily whispered. She tucked a loose strand of blonde hair behind her ear. She needed this job. Her mother's medical bills were piling up on the kitchen counter like a paper monument to despair. Every shift at the Regency meant another week of medication, another week of keeping the lights on. She couldn't afford pride. She moved through the lounge, pouring water for a couple who didn't even acknowledge her presence. They were too busy discussing a hostile takeover of a tech firm. Lily was invisible. That was the first rule of being service staff at the Regency. Be present, but absent. The automatic doors at the main entrance hissed open. A gust of wind blew in, carrying the scent of wet asphalt and exhaust, momentarily overpowering the white tea perfume. The atmosphere in the lobby shifted instantly. A man stood in the doorway. He was large, broad-shouldered, and imposing, but he looked like a shipwreck that had washed ashore. He wore a heavy, dark overcoat that was soaked through, the fabric stained with mud and grease. His boots were heavy workman's boots, caked in clay that was already beginning to flake off onto the pristine white marble. His hair was a matted grey mane, plastered to his forehead by the rain, and his beard was unkempt. But it was his eyes that caught Lily's attention from across the room. They were a piercing, icy blue, alert, terrified and furious all at once. Arthur, the head concierge, froze behind his mahogany desk. He looked at the man as if a rat had just scurried across the ledger. "Excuse me?" Arthur's voice rang out, sharp and accusatory. "Sir, you cannot be in here." The man didn't respond to the English. He took a heavy step forward, his boots squeaking loudly on the floor. He looked around wildly, his gaze darting from the chandeliers to the security cameras. "Sir," Arthur stepped out from behind the desk, holding up a hand. The shelter is 4 blocks down. This is private property. You are dripping on the floor." The man shouted something then. It was a guttural, deep sound, a string of harsh consonants and rolling R's that echoed off the high ceilings. "De moja doch, ja dolzen najtieje." The guests in the lobby stopped their conversations. A woman in a fur coat gasped and clutched her pearls, pulling her handbag closer. Preston Galloway materialized from his office, like a shark sensing blood in the water. He saw the mud on the floor first, his face turning a shade of purple, before he looked up at the man. "Security," Preston barked, snapping his fingers. "Get this vagrant out of my lobby immediately. He's disturbing the guests." 2 security guards, burly men named Davis and Miller, unhooked their radios and began to approach the stranger. The man shouted again, louder this time, pointing a shaking finger at the reception desk. "Wy nie ponimajete. Mnie нужна помощь." "I don't care what kind of drugs you're on," Preston sneered, stepping closer but staying safely behind the wall of security guards. "You are leaving. Now. Or you are leaving in handcuffs." The stranger looked frantic. He reached into his coat pocket. "He's got a weapon!" Arthur screamed, ducking behind the counter. Davis and Miller lunged. Davis grabbed the man's left arm, twisting it behind his back. The stranger roared, a sound of pure frustration, and shoved Miller backward with surprising strength for an old man. "Don't hurt him!" Lily cried out. The words left her mouth before she could stop them. Preston whipped his head around, his eyes narrowing into slits. "Get back to work, Harper, unless you want to join him in the gutter." "He's not attacking anyone," Lily insisted, clutching the water pitcher to her chest. She had been watching his eyes. He wasn't reaching for a knife. He was reaching for something flat. A wallet? A photo? "He is resisting," Preston said coldly. "Throw him out the back, and call the police. Tell them we have an aggressive trespasser." The stranger was strong, but he was old and exhausted. The 2 guards pinned him against the marble pillar. The man's face was pressed against the cold stone, his breathing ragged. He stopped fighting, but he began to sob. It was a dry, heaving sound. He spoke again, but this time it wasn't a shout. It was a whisper, broken and pleading. "Pojaluista, ja prosto ustal." The guests were whispering, some taking out their phones to record the spectacle. Preston was preening, adjusting his cuffs, clearly proud of how he was handling the threat. Lily felt a heat rise in her chest. She knew that language. She hadn't spoken it in years, not since her grandmother Tatiana passed away when Lily was 12. But the sounds were woven into her childhood memories. The smell of borscht, the sound of folk songs, the warmth of a kitchen that felt safe. She couldn't stand by. She couldn't watch them treat a human being like garbage just because his coat was dirty. Lily set the pitcher down on a side table with a loud clink. "Harper," Preston warned. "One more step and you're fired." Lily ignored him. She walked past the stunned guests, past the sneering concierge, and right up to the security guards. "Let him go," Lily said, her voice trembling but clear. "Back off, Lily," Miller grunted, struggling to hold the man's arm. "He's crazy." "He's not crazy," Lily said. She looked at the man, locking eyes with him. She took a deep breath, searching the archives of her memory for the right words, hoping her accent wasn't too rusty. "Odpustite jego," she said to the guards, though looking at the man. Then, switching to Russian, she spoke directly to the stranger. "Vivi bez opasnosti. Oni ne pričinjat vam vred." "You are safe. They will not hurt you." The effect was instantaneous. The man stopped struggling. His body went limp against the pillar. He looked at Lily, his blue eyes widening in shock. It was as if he had been drowning in the middle of the ocean, and she had just thrown him a lifeline. "Tai govorishes." "Po-ruski? You speak Russian?" he rasped. Lily nodded slowly. Nemnogo. Moja babushka. Uchila menya. A little. My grandmother taught me. Preston marched over, grabbing Lily by the shoulder and spinning her around. What do you think you are doing? Speaking gibberish with the homeless. This is a 5-star hotel, not a charity ward. He's not homeless, Mr. Galloway, Lily said, shaking his hand off. He's asking for help. He said he's tired. He just wants to sit down. I don't care if he's the Pope, Preston spat. He smells like a sewer. Get him out. If you throw him out, Lily said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper so the guests wouldn't hear. I will start screaming that the security guards are assaulting a confused senior citizen, and Mrs. Vanderbilt over there is recording everything on her iPhone. Do you really want that on the news tonight? Preston's face went pale. He looked at Mrs. Vanderbilt, who was indeed holding her phone up. He looked at the muddy man. He looked at Lily with pure hatred. Fine, Preston hissed. Take him to the staff break room in the basement. Get him out of sight. Give him 5 minutes to dry off, then kick him out the back door, and then Harper, come to my office. The staff break room was a stark contrast to the lobby. It was a windowless concrete box filled with the hum of vending machines and the smell of stale coffee. But to the stranger, it seemed to be a sanctuary. Lily guided him to a plastic chair. He sat heavily, his wet coat dripping onto the linoleum. The security guard, Miller, stood by the door with his arms crossed, watching them suspiciously, but he stayed silent. Lily grabbed a clean towel from the laundry stack and handed it to the man. She also poured a cup of hot water from the kettle and dropped in a tea bag. Cheap jasmine tea, the only kind the staff was allowed to drink. Vot, she said softly. Eto sogreat vas. Here, this will warm you. The man took the towel with trembling hands. He wiped his face, revealing skin that was weathered but not old. He was perhaps in his late 50s. Beneath the grime, his features were sharp and aristocratic. He took the tea, wrapping his large hands around the paper cup as if it were a precious jewel. Spasibo, he murmured. He looked up at Lily. Spasibo, Ditya. Thank you, child. What is your name? Lily asked in English, then repeated it in halting Russian. Kak vas zovut? Nikolai, he said. His voice was stronger now. My name is Nikolai. I am Lily, she said. Nikolai took a sip of the tea. He closed his eyes, savoring the warmth. When he opened them, the panic was gone, replaced by a sharp, calculating intelligence that Lily hadn't noticed before. He looked at her uniform, then at the guard by the door, and finally at the name tag pinned to her apron. Why did you help me, Lily? He asked. His English was heavily accented, thick and rough, but perfectly understandable. Lily blinked in surprise. You speak English? I speak many things, Nikolai said, a small, sad smile playing on his lips. But outside, nobody wanted to listen. They saw the coat. They saw the mud. They stopped listening before I even opened my mouth. Why didn't you just tell them? Lily asked. If you had told Preston, Mr. Galloway, that you spoke English, maybe he would have let me stay. Nikolai laughed, a bitter, dry bark. No, I have met men like him before. Men who measure worth by the shine of a shoe. Tell me, does he treat you well? This man? Lily looked down at her hands. He is my boss. It's a job. That is not an answer, Nikolai observed. He took another sip of tea. He threatened to fire you, because you showed kindness. He threatens to fire me every day, Lily admitted, glancing at Miller, who was bored and checking his phone. I was late once because my mother fell, and he docked my pay for a week. But I need the money. My mother is sick. Nikolai's expression darkened. He looked at the cheap tea in his hand, then looked around the dismal break room. And yet you risked this job for a stranger." "You looked like you were in pain," Lily shrugged. "My grandmother always said, 'Guest is God,' even if the guest is wet." Nikolai chuckled. It was a genuine sound this time. A true Russian proverb. Your grandmother was a wise woman. He reached into the deep pocket of his wet coat. Miller, the guard, immediately tensed, his hand dropping to his belt. "Relax," Nikolai growled at the guard without looking at him. "I'm getting a napkin." He pulled out a soggy, crumpled handkerchief. He wiped his hands, then reached into an inner pocket of the coat, one that seemed to have stayed dry. He pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook and a heavy fountain pen. He scribbled something on a page, tore it out, and folded it. "Lily," Nikolai said, his tone serious. "I must go. I have appointments, but I will not forget this tea. It is the best tea I have had in Seattle." "You have to go out the back," Lily said anxiously. "If Preston sees you in the lobby again—" "Do not worry about Preston," Nikolai said. His eyes flashed with that icy blue fire again. "Preston has much bigger things to worry about coming his way." He stood up. Even in the dirty coat, he suddenly seemed taller, filling the small room. He handed the folded piece of paper to Lily. "Do not open this yet," he commanded. "Wait until tonight, when you are home. Promise me." I promise," Lily said, taking the paper. It felt heavy, like expensive parchment. "Miller," Nikolai said, turning to the guard. "Show me the back exit. I know the way to the alley." Miller blinked, confused by the sudden shift in authority. The homeless man was giving orders, and oddly, Miller felt compelled to obey. Yeah. This way, buddy." At the service door, Nikolai paused. He turned back to Lily. "Do not let them break you, Lily Harper," he said. "The diamond is only formed under pressure. But sometimes the diamond needs to be taken out of the dark to shine." And with that, he stepped out into the rainy alleyway and vanished into the grey Seattle afternoon. Lily stood alone in the break room, the folded paper burning a hole in her pocket. She didn't have time to wonder what it was. The door banged open, and Preston Galloway stormed in. "Well?" Preston demanded, looking around. "Is the rat gone?" "He left," Lily said, her voice quiet. "Good. Now, sanitize that chair. Burn it if you have to." Preston adjusted his tie. "And you, Harper, you're on thin ice. Tonight is the banquet for the Volkov Holdings Group. The Russian delegation is arriving to inspect the hotel for a potential buyout. If you breathe a word of Russian, if you do anything other than pour wine and shut your mouth, you are finished. Do you hear me?" Lily froze. Volkov Holdings. Everyone knew the name. It was one of the largest private equity firms in Eastern Europe. They bought luxury hotels, restored them, and turned them into gold mines. Or they stripped them for parts. "I hear you," Lily said. "Good. Get upstairs. You're working the VIP table. And Harper?" Preston sneered. "Try to look less like a peasant. These are billionaires, not your friends from the shelter." Lily watched him leave. Her hand drifted to her pocket, touching the paper Nikolai had given her. Volkov Holdings. She thought of the man's blue eyes. She thought of his boots. She thought of the name he gave her. Nikolai. A cold chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning ran down her spine. No, she thought. It couldn't be. The grand ballroom of the Regency Grand had been transformed into a theatre of excess. The theme was Winter Palace, a sycophantic nod to the guests of honor. Ice sculptures in the shape of Russian bears dripped slowly into silver basins. The tablecloths were velvet, the cutlery was gold-plated, and the wine being decanted was a vintage older than Lily herself. Preston Galloway was pacing near the kitchen doors, sweating through his second shirt of the day. "Listen to me. Preston hissed to the line of servers standing at attention. "The people walking through those doors in 10 minutes own half of Europe. They don't want to see you. They want to see their food appear as if by magic. If you drop a fork, don't pick it up. Leave the room and never come back. Do we have an understanding?" "Yes, sir," the staff chorused dully. Lily stood at the end of the line. She had changed her apron, but the exhaustion was bone deep. She could still feel the phantom weight of the folded paper Nikolai had given her in her pocket. She hadn't dared to look at it yet. "Harper," Preston snapped, stopping in front of her. He looked her up and down with a sneer. "You're on water and wine duty for the head table. Don't speak to them. Don't look them in the eye. You are a ghost. If I see you doing anything other than pouring, I will ensure you are blacklisted from every hotel in this city." "Understood," Lily said, keeping her eyes on his tie knot. "Good. They're here." The double doors swung open. The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The delegation from Volkov Holdings did not walk. They glided. There were 6 of them. Men in bespoke suits that fit like armor, and women in dresses that cost more than a car. They were beautiful, cold, and terrifying. Leading the pack was a man named Victor, a sharp-featured executive with a shark-like grin. Next to him was a woman named Eleanor, whose eyes scanned the room like a sniper searching for a target. Preston rushed forward, bowing so low it was embarrassing. "Welcome, Dobro Pozalovat." Preston butchered the pronunciation, his smile plastered on like a mask. "We are honored to host Volkov Holdings. I am Preston Galloway, the general manager." Victor looked at Preston's outstretched hand and ignored it. He walked past him, looking at the ceiling. "The chandeliers are dusty," Victor noted in perfect, unaccented English. Preston's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. I assure you, they were cleaned this morning. I will have the housekeeping staff disciplined immediately." "I do not care about your staff," Victor said, taking a seat at the long table. "I care about excellence, and so far the air in here smells of desperation." Preston laughed nervously. "A joke! You have a wonderful sense of humor, Mr. Victor. Please, sit. The chairman's seat is prepared." He gestured to the empty high-backed chair at the head of the table. It was slightly elevated, looking out over the entire ballroom. "The chairman will be arriving shortly," Elena said, taking her seat. She snapped her napkin open. "He had some private business to attend to in the city. He wanted to inspect the local culture." "Of course," Preston beamed, hovering over them. "He will find Seattle very welcoming. We pride ourselves on our hospitality." Lily moved forward, holding a bottle of sparkling water wrapped in a white linen cloth. She approached Elena's right side. "Water, ma'am?" she whispered. Elena didn't look up. She merely tapped the rim of her glass. Lily poured, steady and precise, stopping exactly 3/4 of the way up. She moved to Victor. As she poured, she heard them speaking in low, rapid-fire Russian. "He is going to destroy this place," Elena murmured in Russian. "Look at this manager. He is a peacock. No substance." "The chairman was in a foul mood this morning," Victor replied in Russian, breaking a breadstick. "He said the soul of this hotel is rotten. He went undercover, you know, to test the security." Lily's hand froze. The bottle hovered over Victor's glass. Undercover. The image of the man in the lobby flashed in her mind. The mud, the desperate eyes, the security guards pinning him to the pillar. Nikolai. "Girl," Victor snapped in English. "You are spilling." Lily jolted. A single drop of water had run down the side of the bottle and landed on the tablecloth. A tiny dark spot on the pristine velvet. "I am so sorry, sir," Lily gasped, reaching for her service cloth. "Leave it!" Preston was there instantly, grabbing Lily's arm with a grip that was painful. "You clumsy idiot." He turned to Victor, his face flushed with panic. "I apologize, Mr. Victor. She is new, incompetent. I will have her removed." "It is just water, Galloway," Victor said, bored. "But it shows a lack of discipline. If the server cannot pour water, how can the manager run a hotel?" Preston turned on Lily, his eyes bulging with rage. "Get out of my sight, Harper. Go to the kitchen. You're done. Pack your locker." "Please," Lily whispered. "I need this shift." "You need to learn your place," Preston hissed. "Get out! Now!" Lily felt the tears pricking her eyes. Humiliation burned her cheeks. She turned to leave, clutching the water bottle to her chest. She had lost. The medication, the rent, the food. It was all gone because of one drop of water and a manager who hated her. But before she could reach the kitchen doors, the main entrance to the ballroom slammed open with a thunderous boom. The room went silent. "Wait!" a voice commanded from the doorway. It wasn't a shout. It was a deep, resonant baritone that carried across the silence like a shockwave. Preston froze. Victor and Elena stood up immediately, straightening their jackets. Standing in the doorway was a man. He was wearing a tuxedo that was cut from midnight blue silk. A diamond pin glittered on his lapel. His hair was silver, perfectly groomed and swept back. His beard was trimmed to a sharp, distinguished point. He looked like a king returning to reclaim his throne. But Lily knew those eyes. Blue, icy, piercing. It was the beggar. It was Nikolai. Preston Galloway did not recognize him. Preston saw only money. He saw the cut of the suit, the way the light caught the watch on the man's wrist. A Patek Philippe that cost more than the hotel's annual maintenance budget. Preston saw power, and his instinct was to bow. "Mr. Chairman," Preston cried out, hurrying down the length of the table, his arms spread wide in welcome. We were waiting for you." What a grand entrance. Nikolai did not smile. He walked into the room, his stride long and confident. The limp he had feigned earlier was gone. He walked past Preston, as if the manager were a coat rack. He reached the head of the table. Victor and Eleanor bowed their heads. "Chairman Volkov," Victor said respectfully, "we hope your inspection was illuminating." "It was very educational, Victor," Nikolai said. His English was now crisp, refined, and terrifyingly calm. "I learned a great deal about the standards of the Regency Grand." Preston arrived at the table, breathless. "Please, sir, sit. Can I get you anything? Champagne? Caviar?" Nikolai remained standing. He placed his hands on the back of his chair and looked around the room. His gaze landed on the kitchen doors, where Lily was frozen, half in shadow. "I am thirsty," Nikolai said. "Of course." Preston snapped his fingers. "Sommelier, bring the 82 Bordeaux." "No," Nikolai said, holding up a hand. "I do not want wine. I want tea. Jasmine tea. Cheap jasmine tea. In a paper cup." The room went deadly silent. The guests exchanged confused glances. Preston blinked, his smile twitching. I beg your pardon, sir. Jasmine tea? Paper cup?" Preston laughed nervously. "Surely you are joking. We have the finest loose-leaf blends from Sri Lanka." "Did I stutter, Mr. Galloway?" Nikolai asked softly. "No, sir. Of course not. I will have the kitchen find some. And," Nikolai continued, "I want her to serve it." He pointed a finger. "Not at the sommelier. Not at the head waiter." He pointed directly at Lily, who was standing by the exit with tears drying on her face. Preston turned, confused. "Harper? Sir, she is nobody. She was just leaving. She is incompetent. I was just firing her." "Firing her?" Nikolai's eyebrows rose. "Interesting. Come here, Lily." Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. She walked slowly back toward the table, conscious of every eye in the room on her. She felt small, her uniform cheap compared to the silk and velvet around her. She stopped in front of Nikolai. "Hello again, child," Nikolai said. His voice softened, losing the hard edge it held for Preston. "Hello, Nikolai," she whispered. Preston gasped. You address the chairman by his first name. How dare you?" "Quiet," Nikolai snapped, without looking at Preston. He turned his blue eyes back to the manager. "You do not recognize me, do you, Mr. Galloway?" Preston looked at the billionaire. He squinted. He looked at the beard, the hair, the eyes. Confusion clouded his face. Have we met, sir? At the gala in Zurich, perhaps?" "No," Nikolai said. "We met 3 hours ago, in your lobby." Preston shook his head. "Impossible. I have been in the lobby all day, preparing for your arrival. I only saw—" Preston stopped, his face drained of color. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at Nikolai's broad shoulders. He remembered the broad shoulders of the tramp. He looked at the grey hair. He remembered the matted mane of the beggar. The vagrant," Preston whispered, his voice trembling. "Vagrant," Nikolai tasted the word, spitting it out like poison. "Is that what you call a guest who is tired? Is that what you call a human being who is wet from the rain?" I didn't know," Preston stammered, backing away. "Sir, you were dirty. You were shouting. We have security protocols. I was protecting the hotel." "You were protecting your ego," Nikolai said, stepping closer. "I came here to see if this hotel was worth purchasing. I wanted to see how you treat people when you think no one is watching, when you think there is no profit to be made." Nikolai turned to the room, addressing his executives and the terrified staff. "A man walks in," Nikolai boomed. "He asks for help. And this man," he pointed at Preston, "ordered his guards to break my arm. He ordered me thrown into the garbage." Victor and Elena looked at Preston with expressions of absolute disgust. "But," Nikolai continued, turning to Lily, "one person stood up. One person looked past the mud. One person risked her livelihood to give an old man a cup of tea." He reached out and took Lily's hand. He raised it in the air. "This woman," Nikolai declared, "is the only person in this building who understands the meaning of hospitality. She is the only one who acted with honor." Preston was shaking now, sweat pouring down his face. "Sir, please. It was a misunderstanding. I can explain. I can fix this." "You can fix nothing," Nikolai said coldly. "You fired her for spilling a drop of water?" I was stressed," Preston squeaked. "You are fired," Nikolai said. The words were simple, final. "What?" Preston gasped. "You are fired," Nikolai repeated. "Get out of my hotel, take your expensive suit, take your arrogance, and leave. If you are not out of this building in 5 minutes, I will have Miller and Davis, the guards you trained so well, throw you out the back door, into the mud." "You can't do this!" Preston shrieked, his dignity shattering. "I have a contract. I run this place." "I bought this hotel 10 minutes ago," Nikolai said calmly. "Victor signed the papers while I was changing my tie. It is my building. You are trespassing." He signaled to the security guards by the door, Miller and Davis, who looked pale and terrified. "Escort him out," Nikolai commanded. Miller didn't hesitate. He grabbed Preston by the arm. "Come on, Mr. Galloway," Miller grunted. "Time to go." "No, no!" Preston screamed as he was dragged away, kicking and shouting, exactly like the man he had tried to evict earlier. The doors slammed shut behind him, silencing his pleas. The ballroom was quiet. Nikolai turned back to Lily. He smiled, and the ice in his eyes melted into warmth. "Now," he said. "Lily, about that note I gave you." Lily reached into her pocket. Her hand shook as she pulled out the folded paper. "Open it," Nikolai said. Lily unfolded the heavy paper. It wasn't a check. It wasn't a tip. It was a handwritten note on the hotel stationery. To Lily Harper, for the position of General Manager, the Regency Grand Seattle. Starting salary, $250,000 per year. Signed, Nikolai Volkov. Lily looked up, her mouth falling open. I can't. I'm a waitress. I don't know how to run a hotel." Nikolai laughed. "You know how to treat people, Lily. That is the hard part. The spreadsheets, the budgets. Victor can teach you that. But he cannot teach you how to have a heart." He looked at her seriously. "So, Lily Harper, do you accept?" The transition from the floor to the executive suite was not a climb. It was a teleportation that left Lily reeling. The morning after the banquet, the Regency Grand was in a state of quiet chaos. The gossip had traveled faster than the elevators. Every housekeeper, valet, and line cook knew that Preston Galloway had been dragged out by his own security team, and that Lily, the girl who used to bus tables in the lounge, was now sitting in the leather chair on the top floor. Lily stood in the center of the general manager's office. It was a cavernous room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grey expanse of Elliott Bay. The desk was made of mahogany, vast and intimidating. On it sat a single, sleek laptop and a stack of files that Victor had left for her. "It is too much," Lily whispered to herself. She smoothed down the fabric of her new suit, a charcoal blazer and trousers that Elena had helped her select from a boutique in downtown Seattle that morning. It fit perfectly, but she felt like an imposter wearing it. The door clicked open. Victor entered, carrying a tablet and a steaming cup of coffee. He didn't knock. "The staff meeting is in 10 minutes, Victor said, his voice clipped and efficient. "The department heads are terrified. They think you are going to fire them all in a Stalinist purge. It is excellent for productivity." Lily turned to him. "Victor, I can't do this. I looked at the P&L statements you sent me. I don't know what an EBITDA is. I don't know how to forecast occupancy rates." Victor set the coffee down. He looked at her with an expression that was halfway between annoyance and pity. "Lily, listen to me. Nikolai did not hire you to be an accountant. I am the accountant. Nikolai hired you because you see things we do not." "Like what?" "Like the fact that the housekeeping staff is overworked and skipping corners because they are tired," Victor said. "Like the fact that the guests in the lobby are bored because the music is too loud. You have the eyes of the floor. Preston had the eyes of the bank. The bank is important, yes. But without the floor, the bank is empty." He tapped the desk. "Go down there. Talk to them. Do not try to be Preston. Be Lily." Lily took a deep breath. She drank the coffee. It was strong, expensive, and bitter. "Okay." The conference room was packed. The head of housekeeping, Mrs. Higgins, sat with her arms crossed. The executive chef, a volatile Frenchman named Laurent, was aggressively cleaning his fingernails with a paring knife. The sales director, a slick man named Brad, was sweating. When Lily walked in, the room didn't go silent out of respect. It went silent out of awkwardness. She walked to the head of the table. She didn't sit down. "I know what you're thinking," Lily started. Her voice wavered, then strengthened. "You're thinking this is a joke. You're thinking I'm going to crash this hotel into the ground within a week." Chef Laurent snorted. The thought had crossed the mind. Sherry. "I would think that too," Lily admitted. "I don't know how to cook a soufflé, chef. And Mrs. Higgins, I don't know the logistics of laundry rotation for 500 rooms." Mrs. Higgins raised an eyebrow. "But," Lily continued, leaning her hands on the table, "I know that under Preston, You were cutting the budget for fresh produce, chef. I saw the invoices. You were forced to use frozen scallops last week. Laurent stopped cleaning his nails. He looked up, his eyes narrowing. How did you know? Because I cleared the plates, Lily said. The guests didn't finish them. They scraped them into the bin. It broke your heart, didn't it? Laurent stayed silent, but his posture softened. And Mrs. Higgins, Lily turned to the matron. I know your team is clocking out, but keeping working because Preston threatened to fire anyone who went into overtime. I know your girls are exhausted. Mrs. Higgins looked down at her hands. Mr. Galloway was strict about the budget. Not anymore, Lily said firmly. I spoke to Mr. Volkov this morning. We are increasing the housekeeping budget by 20%. Hire more staff. Stop the unpaid overtime immediately. A murmur went through the room. And chef, Lily looked at Laurent. Buy the fresh scallops. Buy the local salmon. If the food is excellent, the guests will pay for it. I want this hotel to be honest again. The tension in the room snapped. It wasn't gone, but it had changed flavor. It shifted from hostility to curiosity. However, Lily added, her voice hardening, there is one condition. We treat everyone who walks through that door like they own the place, whether they are a billionaire in a tuxedo or a man in a muddy coat. If I see anyone, looking down on a guest, you answer to me. And I know all the hiding spots in the kitchen. Chef Laurent cracked a smile. It was a terrifying expression, but it was a smile. Perhaps, he said, sheathing his knife, this will not be a disaster. Let's get to work, Lily said. For the next 2 weeks, the Regency Grand underwent a metamorphosis. It wasn't just the fresh flowers in the lobby or the better food. It was the energy. The staff, no longer terrified of a tyrant, began to smile. Genuine smiles. But not everyone was happy. Preston Galloway had not gone quietly into the night. He was a man with connections, a man with a bruised ego, and a man who knew where the bodies were buried because he had buried them himself. Lily was in her office, late one Tuesday night, going over the guest list for the upcoming Tech Summit, a massive event that would bring the biggest CEOs from Silicon Valley to the hotel. It was her first major test. Her phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? Enjoying the view, Harper? The voice was unmistakable, oily, arrogant, and dripping with malice. Preston, Lily said, her grip tightening on the phone. You're not allowed to call here. I can call whoever I want. Preston laughed. I just wanted to wish you luck with the Tech Summit tomorrow. I hear the CEO of Nexus Corp is attending. Big deal. Very big deal. What do you want? Lily asked. I just wanted to warn you, Preston said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Old buildings like the Regency. They have so many problems. Pipes burst. Wiring fails. Rats appear in the soup. It's a shame, really. It would be tragic if something happened to ruin your big debut. If you come near this hotel, I'll call the police, Lily said. I'm nowhere near the hotel, darling. I'm sitting on a beach in Cabo. But my ghost is still in the walls. The line went dead. Lily stared at the phone. A cold knot formed in her stomach. She buzzed Victor immediately. Victor, get security. Check the kitchen. Check the basement. Check everything. What is wrong? Victor asked, sensing the panic in her voice. Preston, Lily said. He's planning something. The morning of the Tech Summit arrived with a grey, ominous sky. The lobby was buzzing with security details. Men with earpieces and sunglasses patrolled the perimeter. The guests were high-profile, billionaires, innovators, and politicians. Lily was everywhere at once. She checked the ballroom. She checked the suites. She tasted the coffee. Nikolai Volkov was there, sitting in the lounge, reading a newspaper. He looked calm, an anchor in the storm. He gave Lily a small nod as she rushed past, a silent signal of support. Everything seemed perfect. The keynote speech began at 10:15 a.m. The ballroom was packed. At 10:15 a.m., the lights flickered. Lily, standing at the back of the room near the soundboard, froze. "What was that?" she asked the technician. "Power surge," the tech guy muttered, tapping his screen. "Weird. The grid is stable." Then it happened. A sound tore through the speakers. Not the voice of the keynote speaker, but a high-pitched, screeching feedback loop that forced guests to cover their ears. The lights didn't just flicker. They died. The ballroom plunged into pitch blackness. Panic rippled through the crowd. Shouts echoed in the dark. "Emergency lights!" Lily screamed into her radio. "Get the backup generators online!" "I'm trying!" The chief engineer's voice crackled back, sounding frantic. "They're not engaging! The system is locked out! Someone changed the digital codes!" Preston. Lily's mind raced. He hadn't cut the wires. He had hacked the system. He knew the passwords. He knew the overrides. He was shutting them down remotely. In the darkness, the panic was rising. These were powerful people. If they got hurt, if there was a stampede, the Regency Grand was finished. Volkov Holdings would be sued into oblivion. Lily's career would be over before it began. She saw the glow of a cell phone near the front. It was Nikolai. He wasn't moving. He was waiting to see what she would do. Lily didn't run to the engineering room. She knew she couldn't out-hack Preston. She needed a manual solution. "Victor," she yelled into her radio, "where are the manual overrides for the ballroom curtains?" "The what?" "The curtains. The heavy velvet ones covering the windows. They're motorized, but there has to be a manual release. Behind the stage, a lever on the wall, stage left." Lily kicked off her heels. She ran. She navigated the dark ballroom by memory, dodging chairs and confused guests. She leaped onto the stage, feeling her way along the velvet ropes. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm," she shouted, her voice projecting without a microphone. "We are having a technical difficulty, but we are fixing it." She found the wall. Her fingers scrabbled against the paneling. "Lever! Lever! Where is the lever?" Her hand struck cold metal, a recessed handle. She grabbed it with both hands and pulled with all her weight. It was rusted, stuck. "Come on," she grunted, adrenaline flooding her veins. She thought of Preston laughing on a beach. She thought of her mother's medical bills. She thought of the look in Nikolai's eyes when he gave her the job. She screamed and threw her entire body weight backward. Clang! The gears ground together and the mechanism released. The massive, heavy velvet drapes that covered the floor-to-ceiling windows began to slide open. The grey light of the Seattle morning flooded the room. It wasn't bright sunshine, but it was light. The guests stopped shouting. They could see again. Lily stood on the stage, breathless, barefoot, her hair coming loose. "I apologize for the interruption," she said, her chest heaving. She looked at the crowd. She saw the CEO of Nexus Corp looking at her, surprised. "It seems," Lily said, improvising wildly, "that we wanted to show you the view. Seattle is powered by technology, but sometimes you just need a little natural light." A beat of silence. Then the CEO of Nexus Corp started to laugh. He clapped his hands. "Well handled," he shouted. "Back to basics. I like it." The room erupted in applause. It wasn't polite applause. It was relieved, impressed applause. Lily slumped against the wall. She had saved the moment, but she wasn't done. She jumped off the stage and ran to the lobby. She found Arthur, the concierge. "Arthur, who accessed the server room?" "Nobody, Miss Harper. I've been here all morning." "Think." Lily grabbed his shoulders. "Did Preston send anyone? Did any maintenance crews come in?" Arthur's eyes went wide. The HVAC repair came in at 8:00 AM. Said they had a work order from corporate. We didn't order HVAC repair, Lily said, her blood running cold. Where are they? They went to the roof. Davis! Miller! Lily shouted at the security guards. To the roof! Now! They sprinted to the elevators. Lily jammed her keycard into the override slot. When they burst onto the windswept roof, they found 2 men in blue coveralls kneeling by the main HVAC intake vents. They were holding large canisters labeled industrial ammonia. Hey! Davis shouted, drawing his taser. The men jumped up, dropping the canisters. Don't move! Miller roared. If they had poured that ammonia into the intake, they would have gassed the entire hotel. It wouldn't have just been a blackout. People would have been hospitalized. Preston wasn't just trying to embarrass her. He was trying to cause a catastrophe. The men raised their hands. It wasn't us, one of them yelled. Galloway paid us. He said it was just a prank. Stink bombs, he said. Ammonia isn't a stink bomb, Lily said, walking forward, her fury making her fearless. It's a weapon. She looked at the canisters, then at the men. Who has the phone? Lily demanded. Who is talking to him? The shorter man pointed to a cell phone lying on the gravel. The call was still active. Lily picked it up. She put it to her ear. She could hear the ocean breeze in the background. Preston, she said. Silence on the other end. You went too far, Lily said, her voice shaking with rage. You tried to hurt people. You were supposed to fail. Preston's voice was no longer arrogant. It was shrill. You're a waitress. You're nothing. I am the general manager of the Regency Grand, Lily said, and I am recording this call. Davis are the police on their way. They are in the lobby, ma'am, Davis confirmed loudly. You're finished, Preston, Lily said. Not fired. Finished. You're going to prison. She hung up the phone and dropped it into a puddle of rainwater. She looked out over the city. Her hands were trembling, but she felt a strange sense of calm. The wind whipped her hair across her face. Behind her, the door to the roof opened again. Nikolai Volkov stepped out. He walked over to the canisters, looked at them, and then looked at Lily. He saw her bare feet, her messy hair, and the fire in her eyes. You found the manual override, Nikolai noted, impressed. I found the rats, Lily corrected him. Nikolai nodded slowly. He took off his tuxedo jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It was heavy, warm, and smelled of expensive tobacco and rain. Preston Galloway was a mistake I made for 5 years, Nikolai said quietly. You, Lily Harper, you are the best investment I have ever made. He tried to gas the hotel, Nikolai, Lily whispered. And you stopped him, Nikolai said. Victor has already frozen Preston's assets. The police in Mexico are being contacted as we speak. He will not trouble you again. He turned her around to face the view of the city. But now, Nikolai said, you have a bigger problem. What? Lily asked, dreading the answer. You have 500 hungry guests in a ballroom with no electricity, Nikolai smiled. And Chef Laurent says the ovens are digital. They are off. Lily closed her eyes and let out a long breath. Then she opened them. We have gas burners for the omelette stations, she said, her mind already working. And we have the outdoor grills on the terrace. Yes? We're having a barbecue, Lily decided. 5-star luxury barbecue, salmon on cedar planks, grilled vegetables. We open the wine cellar. We make it a party. Nikolai threw his head back and laughed. It was a loud, joyous sound that echoed off the rooftops. A barbecue for the tech summit, he said. It is crazy. It is unprofessional. It is brilliant. He offered her his arm. Lead the way, Madame Manager. The blackout barbecue became the stuff of legend. On the terrace of the Regency Grand, Surrounded by the gleaming towers of Seattle, the wealthiest people in tech ate grilled cedar plank salmon with their fingers. The stiffness of the summit vanished. The CEO of Nexus Corp was seen laughing with Chef Laurent, who manned the grill with a cigarette dangling from his lip, looking happier than he had in years. "This is real leadership," the CEO told Lily, wiping barbecue sauce from his chin. "You turned a catastrophe into a party. Most managers would have hidden. You opened the wine cellar." In the corner, nursing a paper cup of coffee, Nikolai watched her. He didn't interfere. He simply let her shine. By the next morning, power was restored, and the hotel returned to its rhythm. But the reckoning had arrived. News broke by noon. Preston Galloway had been arrested at the airport in Cabo San Lucas, charged with corporate sabotage and endangerment. The image of him in handcuffs was splashed across every screen. His career turned to ash. For Lily, however, the victory wasn't watching Preston fall. It was walking into the hospital 3 days later. Her mother, Sarah, was sitting up, colour returning to her cheeks. The new treatment, fully covered by the hotel's platinum insurance Nikolai had authorized, was working. "I'm coming home next week, Lily," Sarah smiled. Lily sat on the edge of the bed and wept. Not from sorrow, but from the sheer, overwhelming relief of a burden finally lifted. The ground beneath her feet was solid at last. 6 months passed. The Regency Grand was transformed. Revenue was up 40%, but more importantly, the staff smiled. Lily was in the general manager's office, now warm with velvet armchairs and fresh flowers, when Arthur knocked. "He's here, Miss Harper." Nikolai walked in. He looked younger, lighter, dressed in a simple wool sweater. "I am retiring, Lily," he announced, taking the cup of jasmine tea she poured. "I return to Europe tomorrow. My vineyard in Tuscany is calling." "I'll miss you, Nikolai," Lily said honestly. "I have one last piece of business." He placed a small, weathered velvet box on the desk. "Open it." Inside lay a heavy, rusted iron key. 40 years ago, Nikolai said softly, staring at the object. "I came to this hotel as a refugee. I washed dishes in the kitchen. I had nothing but a dream and a maid named Katya. She snuck me food. She taught me English. We fell in love in the basement break room." Lily stared at him, stunned. "You worked here?" "It is where our life began. When I returned that rainy day, I was looking for the spirit of this place, the spirit of Katya. I found only greed. I was ready to burn the building down and erase the memory. And then, a waitress handed me a cup of tea and spoke to me in my mother tongue. You saved this place, Lily. Not with business, but with love." He pushed the box closer to her. "I transferred the deed this morning. The Regency Grand, the building, the land. It is in your name, Lily Harper." Lily gasped, backing away. "Nikolai, I can't. This is millions of dollars." "The world has enough rich men who take," he said, standing up. "It needs more people who give. Consider it karmic justice." He walked to the door, then paused, his blue eyes twinkling. "Do not thank me. Just promise me one thing. The next time someone walks into your lobby with mud on their boots and sadness in their eyes, make sure they get a seat by the fire." "I promise," Lily whispered. He nodded, satisfied, and walked out of her life, leaving Lily alone with the rain, the key, and a future brighter than she ever dared imagine. She walked to the window to watch his car pull away. The phone on her desk rang. "Ms. Harper," it was the front desk. "We have a situation. 2 backpackers just walked in, soaked to the bone, no reservation. Security wants to know if they should remove them." Lily smiled, gripping the iron key tight in her palm. "No," she said firmly. "Bring them towels and hot tea. Then tell them the general manager is coming down, to upgrade them to the presidential suite. On the house. Lily Harper straightened her blazer, wiped a tear from her cheek, and walked out the door to do her job. And that is how a single glass of water toppled a tyrant and turned a waitress into the owner of the most luxurious hotel in the city. It brings us back to a simple truth. You can tell the character of a person not by how they treat their superiors, but by how they treat those who can do nothing for them. Preston saw trash. Lily saw a human being. In the end, kindness was the ultimate investment. What would you have done if Nikolai walked into your workplace? Be honest in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of karma and justice, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Thanks for listening.